Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our hosts, Sri Rajagopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys. Hello and welcome to a simulcast of the CPG Guys and the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm PVSB, one of the co-hosts of the CPG Guys, and I am joined by two very important people today. The first is my fellow co-founder and co-host of the CPG Guys. He's back in Los Angeles after traveling around the world, it seems like crazy, for the last couple of weeks. He's got two incredibly impressive recording artist daughters, Ria Raj and Lara Raj. Make sure to follow them on their social media journeys through hyperlinks in the digital liner notes of this episode. Of course, I'm talking about the man known as Shri. Shri, back in La La Land. Yankees down. As we record this, the Yankees are down 2 games in the series against the Dodgers in the Bronx. What's going on, man? They don't have you there to give them the karma they need to win. What's going down?
Dodgers 5 game behind the Yankees. Mic drop after winning 2 in a row.
Yeah, except the Dodgers are up by 6 games in their division. So not really feeling too worried about this.
Wait. I want to hang on to that theory for a bit. I won't bore our special guest here today, but I want to hang on to that theory. That means you play in the weakest division in the league.
I know. We like beating up on the Giants.
Congratulations for being the best amongst the weakest.
I'll take it. I'll take it every day. You know, it's sad that last night Aaron Judge had 2 home runs and it was completely overshadowed by Hernandez's grand salami, adding insult to injury in the big 11 runs they scored. That was a big night for the Dodgers.
Look at him, Cloud being 5 games behind.
Shri, it's good to have you here. Let me welcome our dear friend. He's our co-conspirator from across the pond. He is the co-founder and CEO of the FMCG Guys, Daniel Torres Dwyer. Daniel, how are you, man? Welcome. Good to share the screen with you. How you doing?
Hi there. I'm doing good. I don't know what you were talking about for like a minute and a half just now.
It was cricket. We were talking cricket.
American cricket, right? That's how.
Yeah, American cricket. That's it. American cricket. That's right.
I'm doing good. It was. I'm just recovering from a very busy week at Shoptalk, where Shri had to put up with me for more hours than he probably wanted to. But here we are.
I also want to thank you for taking care of my flywheel colleague Jackie. She said you were between the two of you. She was as happy as a clam. She was quite enjoying her time there, but that's why we're here today, guys, because we wanted to talk about this great event that took place in Barcelona last week. Last year I got to attend, and Daniel and I had a lot of fun. This year, scheduling didn't work out for me, but I was so happy that Shri was able to take my place. And you guys spent quite a number of days walking the show floor at Shoptalk Europe, which is the European version of the big event that happens in Las Vegas every spring. So what I was hoping today was to get you guys started and let you riff on what were some of the interesting things you saw, people you met, what you got out of the show. And I thought I'll just start off by this. Shri, why don't you just tell us what Shoptalk is as a starter? What is Shoptalk, and who are the kind of people that go to this event?
I call it a great melting of the minds, right? So we've had Shoptalk in the United States every March now for maybe close to a decade. I remember going back in the early 2010 pluses, maybe 13, 14, something like that. Shoptalk Europe, this is the second year it's been. This year was Barcelona. So who goes? Brands, retailers, and then service providers who cater to brands and retailers. So who goes from brands and retailers? Commercial leaders. So largely those that are in the omnichannel space, but in the US, we've already migrated to our guest speakers on stage being CEOs of large retailers, CEOs of large brands. In Shoptalk Europe, it was still largely omnichannel leadership that came. We had a handful of CEOs that came, such as the group CEO of Currys PLC, who came in, spoke about how Currys is reinventing itself for tomorrow's consumer. I remember that one clearly because it was the kickoff of Shoptalk. but there was chairman of IKEA who came by and spoke about changes in leadership and customer centricity. So Shoptalk Europe followed very well. So there was a lot of omnichannel leaders in at Europe in Barcelona attending the event, but the US has already migrated to Shoptalk Fall coming up in October, which is going to be focused heavily on supply chain, brick and mortar. So it's for all kinds of leaders, cross-functional, across commercial spaces, brands, retailers, and service providers who cater to them. Before I hand it over to Daniel for his quick opening comment here, I do want to congratulate Ben Miller, Hannah Redfern, and Sophie Waro, all three from Shoptalk and Grocery Shop, for pulling off an awesome event. Very, 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 very insightful and productive for those who attended for 3-hour days. Thank you and congratulations to the three of you. Well done indeed.
And Sri, before we have Daniel speak, there's something that you and I need to celebrate. And it's the fact that the FMCG Guys has exceeded 15,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Hey!
Woo-hoo! Raise the roof, Daniel.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, man. You got a posse.
Yeah. We have a small town, I think, a small city already of people. And it's awesome to have this number, considering that I think this time last year we were around 6,000. So that was a year and a half in, and now 2 years and a half in, we have, a few more than that, right? So it's pretty cool.
That is quite impressive. So Daniel, this is your second year of Shop Talk. Any, before we get into it, third year. What'd you notice about this year versus the last two? Is it a continuation? Is it getting bigger? Any call outs that you saw that made this edition stand out maybe a little bit more than the prior two?
Yeah, in my opinion, like 2 years ago, London was the first time after COVID. Maybe it was a bit wobbly. Last year, I think a lot of people came already, and I think this year's really like consolidated the event as like the place to be for FMCG and up to an extent retail executives that are in the marketing, commercial, digital space to be. So I think that there's been a huge consolidation of that, but I still think, and we can talk a bit more about it, that there's space to adjust the content to make it even more relevant to what's happening in the industry.
Now, one of the biggest beefs about trade shows is that there seem to be a lot more service providers and agencies lingering around than actual brands and retailers. From your guys' impressions, I'll throw it to you, Daniel, first. What you think? Would you see a lot of brands, a lot of retailers at this show?
For me, there's a huge amount of people from the brand and retail and grocer side in this event. I mean, we did a pre Shop Talk party on Friday. We set it up in a very nice bar in a rooftop in Barcelona, sunset view. But we put the event out there so anyone could sign up for it. And the result was that around, I would say, 70% of the people that showed up came from the brand side, right? So we had huge amounts of people from Henkel, Kellogg's, Stada, Lavazza, Nestle, Bayer, even Lidl. So I think that's a bit of a thermometer. And then as I was walking the show floor, of course, I ran into a lot of friends from the agency side. But it was incredible because I walked every 25 meters that I walked, I ran into someone, and it was mostly from the brand or retailer side that I've known through my podcasting activities or through my headhunting activities in 10 years in the industry.
Sri, you were at the kickoff party on Sunday night. And by the way, to those in the audience, in the digital liner notes of this episode, I'm going to hyperlink you to a Google photo drive of all the great pictures. It was quite a star-studded event. But Sri, what did you think of that kickoff party?
Well, first of all, congratulations to the FMCG guys for the pre-kickoff party hosted on the rooftop with views of all of Barcelona, which was pretty spectacular. You could see the Sagrada Familia from a distance, which for many visitors was a key marquee moment. And just like the CPG guys have the kickoff party and the RSVPs will be going out shortly, we kind of put it out there on LinkedIn about a week and a half or so ago that you can actually DM us directly for now for the October Grocery Shop pre-kickoff party. the FMCG guys had one firecracker party. So brands, as Daniel mentioned, 70%. Some service providers certainly had three great sponsors for the event. And then a handful of retailers that I got to meet. What was exciting for me, Peter, in the first place is who came to the party, not just that they were brands and retailers, but what sort of roles came, the quality of the conversation and the engagement. And as always, the pre-kickoff party of the FMCG guys, just like the CPG guys, was the party to be seen at.
There were some people who wanted to be seen with the two of you. I'll take case in point, Annie Guerra from Colgate-Palmolive over in London. I think she was hunting you two down because she made a big post on LinkedIn at the end of the week and clearly featured pictures that she took with the two of you. So you two were definitely in demand. I know that much. But it sure looked like a lot of great people. By the way, thanks should be given to the three major sponsors of this event: POS Potential, WeGrow, and Flywheel, all of whom helped contribute to make this party a possible event and a real success by all measures. But so Shri, why don't you give us the layout for what this event was like? There were, what was it comprised of? Was it all presentations? Was it trade show floor? What was kind of like the makeup, and what did you like about this, and say compared to Shoptalk in the US, which is a really big event, like 15,000 people at that one?
Yeah, I would say this one was more, I would say 2,500 people. You know what was very interesting and a little bit more exciting about Shoptalk Barcelona than even the US and Vegas is the number of people that attended was probably closer to 2,500 if I were to gauge it, which means when you enter the actual convention center, which was the Frida Gran Via at Barcelona, it was very navigatable. You could find the stages all within the convention center to the left and right of the convention center. So going to different tracks, like understanding the changing consumer, was at the heart stage. Grocery Shop and Shoptalk Europe, thriving in a new grocery environment, was at the club stage. So those two were on the Spade and club stages were on the left-hand side. Spade had exceptional retail experiences for unified commerce, and then Diamond and Heart were on the other side, spotlight and emerging retail tech, which made it very easy to navigate with service providers in the middle. When you need to walk for your table talks or meetups, they weren't far away. They were right at the entrance of the convention center. So all in all, if you wanted to get from one place to another, your walk was 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 on the high side if you walked really slow, or maybe perhaps with a bunch of folks. To me, the most exciting part about this was you could network like crazy, meet who you wanted to, because your walks were less than 10 minutes, and it was all in a very navigatable space. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, like it's so navigable that it's kind of seamless how you can go like from one of the conferences to then meeting someone that you have to meet with in like one of the tables in the eating area, to seeing a service provider, to then rushing to your meetup. It's like, as Shri was saying, so seamless. And the thing is that the size of the event and the fact that very relevant people go makes it like, it just feels like, and just quoting you, Peter, here, it seems like an old high school reunion, if you like, where you just run into relevant people all the time. So for me, it's probably like my number one event to go to all year, paired with Shoptalk US for some reasons. But
it doesn't hurt that you don't have to travel very far to get this event. You live right in Barcelona. So I counted at least 4 prior guests of the CPG Guys podcast: Ekta Chopra, I saw Simon Miles, Joe Laszlo, and Sophie Waro from Shoptalk. Daniel, I think you probably saw quite a number of people there who'd been on the FMCG Guys, yes?
Yeah, a lot of them. Steiner Meersman from Amazon, Alberto Ketzler from Arla Foods, Boris Rutem from Henkel, also Simon Miles, and Sophie was also on the show. But I'm probably forgetting a few. But yeah, and a few of people that were in the pipeline and will come soon.
I think Shri, you basically locked down Ji Cheng from Mondelez finally. We've been chasing her for a long time.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to that one for a very, 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 if I want to say very, very, very long time. And Also want to say hello to Pam Ehrlichman. It was a pleasure to see you in person because we are only engaged via Riverside.fm and on video calls via Google in the future. So it was good to see you in person.
I think the last time you saw Pam in person, it was you and me and her having dinner in Cambridge. You were there in town for a General Mills Harvard Business event, and you took some time out to have lunch. So it's been quite a while since you'd seen
That
Pam.
doesn't count, Peter, because that was, I think, maybe 2022 at this point, maybe even earlier. And it doesn't count because that was the first time I was meeting Pam, not as a partner of the CPG guys or on the show. So it doesn't count. So I was just excited that I can actually meet her as somebody who's come on the show. One important thing, Peter, I want to hit up is try and answer a question. Should someone who's responsible for the US business go to Shoptalk Europe as it comes by next year? And so having come with a somewhat of a US centric mindset to Shoptalk Europe, I did find the conversation extremely useful to me because I found that a lot of the service providers who I got to meet up. I got to meet a whole bunch of new tech-based service providers trying to enter the US market, which is exciting for me to see what capabilities do have, what white space do they serve in the US market that doesn't exist already, and then the ability to try and decide, can they come to the US? Where would they mostly be applicable, and which capability could they plug into directly into the US? So for that reason, it was pretty useful to me. But listening to some of the tracks on speakers from Tesco, I mentioned IKEA, PepsiCo, McKinsey had some great presentation on assortment and supply chain, but the topics are not different. The topics are pretty similar. AI was a big theme and focus, especially the role of generative AI. I remember this one particular conversation, which was at the heart stage, groundbreaking AI applications in retail and its value, which had the Auto Group, MediaMarkt, Saturn, Zenny, and the moderator was from ShopTalk. A great conversation on not AI as a buzzword, but how it actually is applicable in supply chain. In the US, I want to see more conversation around applicability versus just a conversation on AI. Then there was technology solution spotlights, a lot of conversation on supply chain, unified grocery shopping, merchandising, assortment, and supply chain. So for me, the discussions that are taking place in Europe are very similar to the US. Consumer centricity, AI, data, insights, supply chain problems coming to a close after COVID, and how to sustain them go forward with the changed environment in consumption, and then tech providers who are capable of doing many things in this space.
One tech provider, Daniel, that I saw that I wanted you to comment on that was North America based that was trying to move into Europe is actually Instacart. They had their CaperCart team there. Remember, CaperCart is their smart cart that sits inside a store and provides the ability to send messages and capture products as you're putting them into the basket. They're pushing hard to deploy that technology outside of North America. Did you have a chance to check out what they had going on?
I did not speak with them, but since I know that we have Instacart listeners on the CPG guys, let me do a shout out to them. If you want, I would love to learn more about what you're planning to do in Europe. So do get in touch with me and let's have that conversation on the FMCG guys podcast. Because I did see the card and I was intrigued, but at the end
I actually did spend time with the CaperCart team, quite a considerable bit of time. And here's a good news announcement I'll make, that we've agreed that we will feature CaperCart and Instacart at some point on the CPG guys in the US in the future, maybe in Q3 or Q4, where we'll have an in-depth discussion, including a demo of what it is. I saw a lot of curiosity in that booth from European retailers in terms of the card itself and what it does for the consumer. My big question to Instacart was friction. You know how, Peter, you and I have forever said on the show that from an Amazon perspective, the cart that exists, when you use it at an Amazon Fresh store, perhaps, you can't take it out of the store, which means you have to swap groceries from that cart to another cart and then take it to your vehicle. Instacart, you can actually take the cart to your. Of course, that's going to depend on what the store wants to employ, right? Instacart doesn't own stores. So in the conversation with Instacart, it's like, yes, you can. And some are testing that technology out. We'll see how that goes. But that friction point seemed to be a tad less than the Amazon one. More to come with time, though.
Let's talk a bit about Amazon. I'd love your feedback, Daniel. In the US, Amazon is the dominant player. The only one that really competes with them is Walmart from certainly an omnichannel perspective. Walmart clearly has the brick and mortar footprint that makes them a major rival. Amazon is not as dominant in Europe. It doesn't have quite the footprint. I know, for instance, the Hills pet food division of Colgate, whereas they do sell actively as a 1P seller on Amazon in the United States, they do not sell in Europe because they do not feel the pressure to be on that platform. And since that platform is primarily focused on discounting, if they can avoid it, they want to avoid it. What is your thought on Amazon? Is my perception correct? And is it changing? What's going on with Amazon in your market?
So I think that when it comes to non-food, non-grocery consumer goods, Amazon is definitely the number one and most relevant. Maybe like in consumer electronics competing with MediaMarkt, for example, right? But in terms of like search and retail media capabilities and relevance, Amazon is definitely number one. Now, when you go into like the grocery area, Amazon is like not that relevant really, right? Because doing supermarket shoppings, maybe it happens in the UK and not in many more markets where you would do it in Amazon, for example.
Did you guys feel like Amazon had a presence at Shoptalk, or were they there? I know there was one or two speakers maybe, but I didn't get the sense that all the buzz was about anything Amazon was doing.
In the US, we're used to a huge Amazon presence at these events. You know, you and I have attended many events for Amazon at their suite, etc. And from a everyday work perspective for General Mills, and then in my prior lives, all the way starting back with Frito and J&J, retail media was a big aspect of that at these shows. Here, retail media was not in full form. There were no follow-up like booths and conversation on retail media like we have in the US, which is a little bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. The scale was actually much smaller. Amazon was primarily AWS and not a lot of conversation. I didn't see a lot of attendees, familiar faces whatsoever. It was all AWS. They were there. They dominated. But from a retail perspective, given what Daniel just said, I did not see Amazon as a presence at all.
Yeah, I mean, here in Europe, you have like local champions. Like, for example, I met with a couple of people that came to our Price Spider event on Monday evening that came from Digitec Galaxus, which a lot of people may not have heard about, but they're definitely the strongest e-commerce player in Switzerland, right? Which is a super important market in Europe. Price power, trend setting, you name it, is super important. In Spain, the number one is Mercadona. In France, you have all the drive options with the local Carrefour's, Casinos, or Auchan, and more, right? So, and in Germany, also a different world. So every market has very different dynamics, and that's a bit of what FMCG and retail companies struggle a bit in Europe when it comes to scaling, right?
And even though Amazon may not have quite the presence and dominant position in Europe, that's not to say that there aren't other players that do. One that comes to mind is Zooplus. Jeffrey Lefebvre, the CEO of Zooplus, was on stage. Zooplus is a big player in the pet food and pet care market from an e-commerce perspective, whereas Amazon is not. And so the manufacturers all want to be on that platform. I guess it just goes to show you that it really is very much on a market by market basis that dictates who are the dominant players. There's no one player that owns every single market, right?
Yeah, and that's not to say that, for example, retail media, data, insights that you get from the online is less relevant, and loyalty programs with an app are less relevant in Europe, right? It's just a bit of a more fragmented approach. I think more than ever, it's important to have like a general vision of what you want to do for your business. It's a bit of a global approach, if you like global vision, local execution.
All right, guys, we've now gone 25 minutes without talking about the cause celeb of our industry right now. Of course, I'm talking about generative AI. Shri, I'd love your impressions. Were people talking as much about it over at Shoptalk Europe as they do across the pond here in the US? What's going on?
I think there's a major difference between how Europe is treating AI and how we're treating it here in the US. We started using it as a word very early in the game, as opposed to thinking of the downstream outcomes of AI, period. At the end of the day, what's going to matter is how AI is put into action every day from perhaps a optimization perspective, using data to get insights perspective, rolling up data to get insights perspective. That's the real role of AI. The data you feed it, that's the kind of output it's going to give you. In the US, we are referring more to data collection and what I would call as ML as AI. Only in the last month or so, the conversation has shifted from AI to generative AI, which is more the outcome oriented, where you can ask a question and chat GPTs of the world are now in full swing. I'm referring to the CPG industry and the surrounding retail. In Europe, they're treating it as generative AI from day one, and the value it can provide leaders across the different countries in the European market, retail, as well as CPG providers. There was one fantastic conversation I do remember between Clio Capital, the CTO of Starbucks, Vipin Gupta, and Pernod Ricard, where the conversation was geared around evaluating AI's long-term opportunities and challenges, including holding AI accountable for what could be possible negative outcomes, positive outcomes, but the word outcomes was in the mix, and that's what they were focused on, versus AI is something sensational and is going to change the world, etc. They're like, okay, here are the 3 things it can do. Here are the 3 things it's not going to do. Here's what's going to be great. Here's what's not going to be great. We need to have those sort of discussions in the US more and more and more versus sensationalizing AI. Would you agree, Daniel?
Definitely, because I feel that now, whenever there's the mention of AI, it comes with a follow-up sentence, which is, but you have to have your data in place, for example, which is a kind of like a touch of reality on realism to AI's potential, right? Because if you don't collect your data well, how is AI going to work? So I think that's a bit of like I think that there's a bit of a skepticism that nobody wants to talk about, but everybody has, on like AI's true potential to create versus execute and make our lives easier, if that makes sense.
It does. So Daniel, I wanted to ask you, were there 1 or 2 sessions, keynotes, or breakout sessions that you found particularly interesting? Who was involved in them, and what did you like about them?
Yeah, so it was interesting to see. I went to one which had 2 FMCG guests on it. One was Roger Gray from Bata Group, the Chief Digital Officer. Then there was Stijn de Meersman from Amazon, but from the fashion side. And then there was a woman, forget her name, sorry, from H&M. So that was all about creating experiences, creating a unified commerce experience. So it was an interesting session to see how they contrasted points of view around interacting with the consumer. And there was a touch of AI in it, but it was all, I think we're going back to a bit of the basics in terms of retail and how retail really has to offer a great customer experience in the store that then has a coherence with your online experience, but with a lot of emphasis in the store experience. So that was an
Shri, any from your standpoint? I know you made mention of one, but I'd love to hear any others that kind of shouted out to you as being very interesting.
One particular one for retailers, a direct conversation between Media Market Saturn, the CEO of Unlimited Sale, as well as Sunil Kumar, the global VP and GM for Walmart Commerce Technologies, which was all around navigating changing industry relationships and how to create new revenue streams, which is exactly what data, loyalty, and retail media is doing for retailers. But I love that they took it head on and they put it out in public and had this conversation in front of brands, retailers, and service providers that this is coming. To me, it does make a difference when, as a lifetime brand veteran, this stuff is out there in public. You hear it and you're like, okay, I need to plan for this, go forward. Another very interesting one that they took head on was marketplaces. Marketplaces play a much larger role in Europe than they do because there are more than just the Amazon FBA marketplace and eBay, which is now slowed down significantly in the US, and Etsy and things of that nature. In Europe, they have a huge role to play. There was a great conversation on evolving relationships and partnerships and how FMCGs need to embrace marketplaces. In the US, large-scale FMCGs, which have distribution in 1P in store, largely do not operate on marketplaces. It's 3Ps who buy, resell when they get heavily discounted product. But I loved who actually participated because it was the head of grocery and retail for Spain of Uber, Marta Lopez Saavedra, and then there was a Pernod Ricard leader for new business ventures who was there along with the head of the ecosystem for Sony MC, and a fantastic moderation by the Shoptalk person, Rokon Lucas, over that one. That one to me brought marketplaces all the way to a limelight. Then I would say like a 1-2 punch. Later that afternoon, there was a conversation on navigating these changing industry relationships, literally 1-2 punch, which was between Brico Depot, Miravia, and Allegro, which was, okay, if you have marketplaces, now as a brand, how do you change that relationship with the consumer? Because you're talking one-to-one as opposed to one-to-many in your classic B2B model, which is what I would say 80-85% of what brands do in the United States. That stood out to me, the role of marketplaces. And one thing I do want to say very clearly, Peter, maybe marketplaces have a smaller role in the US today. 10 years from today, they will have a bigger role. There's no workaround around it. This is avoiding marketplace is like saying e-commerce will not be relevant. And remember, majority of US large brands did that 10 years ago, and then COVID hit. And then everything changed and there was a scramble, e-commerce, like crazy. And now I see this roll back to brick and mortar. We want brick and mortar experts. Marketplaces is going to be here in the next 5-7 years. Get ready in the United States. And I love those conversations. Plus, it's new customers in marketplaces.
So unlike the US, Europe doesn't have a grocery shop. They have Shoptalk Europe. That didn't stop them from creating, built into the curriculum at Shoptalk Europe, an entire grocery shop track. There was representation from quite a number of European grocers there. I know on stage, our friend Tom Langley from John Lewis Partnership, which owns Waitrose. There was also someone there from Waitrose on stage. Yes. Well, to be truthful, he actually never spoke with us on the CPG guys. We've rebroadcast the episode that you recorded. So you get dual credit for that episode. But there was a fellow from Soné, which is Portugal's grocery retailer of choice. There were quite a number. I guess my question to you is, Daniel, did you feel like there was sufficient grocery representation at Shoptalk this year?
So there was even Gunnar Gunnarsdottir, who's our guest from Iceland. She was there as well from Samcoop Group. So yes, was there retail representation there? Yes. But I think that's where Shoptalk a little bit may evolve to in Europe, because it's gone a lot to FMCG and grocery more than other parts of retail. I wouldn't be surprised if next year, just based on conversations that I've had and what people are interested in, we have even more retailers because brands want more retailers to speak about not only their online part, but actually their brick and mortar part, category management, merchandising. I think that there's more and more appetite because we talk about unified commerce, right? So I think that every time people will want to have the conversation about the online part and the brick and mortar part and under the same roof.
Shri, is it your impression that Europe, in terms of its advancement, is to some degree still in the phase of scanner? And you want to explain what scanner is to our audience?
Yeah, scanner is an acronym we often use on the show here that was given to us by Chester Twigg, who back in the Johnson & Johnson days 10 years ago as a capabilities anchor. That word has evolved now, but it's search, content, assortment, navigation, aka user experience, and ratings and reviews. In the US, that conversation is now, I would say, a year and a half ago, that conversation started getting defunct because people have built out capabilities. Europe is way past all of that. Content is just a way of life at this point. Like, no one is really obsessing about how do I get better content because they already have great content like 3 years ago. Am I making sense, Peter? I want to go back, but I do want to go back to your grocery track for 1 second, Peter, and kind of address, did I see or did I feel that it was strong at the show over across the pond in the Atlantic? Day one, the conversation was, how do you thrive in a new grocery environment? So you had a conversation with Amazon participating. There was the actual VP of Consumer Goods Europe, Giorgio Busnelli, who came and spoke at that event from my notes over here. Then later in the day, you had the data application for grocery. You had MasterCard coming because, transactionally, credit card is a huge rule to play. I remember Ben Miller actually navigating that one. There was meeting shopper demands for convenience, speed, and value in grocery. Again, that is not with the e-commerce lens, but overall, self-checkouts, things of that nature. Good conversation on that one. Tesco participated in that one along with Deliveroo to answer what is the role of home delivery. Then day two, we had the track for grocery shop was developing unified grocery shopping, which I enjoyed thoroughly. And there was conversations such as fit for whether the technology is fit for future grocery shopping in store and what needs to evolve in the technology. And then as we progressed over to day three, the focus for grocery shop continued in terms of what we should be talking about, digital grocery, etc., because the conversation was around what is the applicability for Europe. We had Kraft Heinz participate, Charlotte Miles from Big participate. There was PepsiCo in the conversation, and our friend of the CPG guys, multiple time guest, Simon Miles, who came and also spoke about Simon Miles, of course, now runs Lighthouse Advisory, and he navigated this excellent conversation on how in grocery there's an evolving relationships and partnerships across the board, which is brought on retail media. I referred to it about 7-8 minutes ago as well. So I think they did their best to navigate the grocery world. They did have decent speakers from retail that came and spoke, as well as from brands that came and spoke. But I do see in the future, Peter, that Shoptalk is overall omnichannel, the future of the CPG industry and retail. Grocery shop with a hardcore grocery track, I feel is one conference maybe in the US that's more worldwide in nature and speaks to everybody, and we can have worldwide attendees, almost like a world congress event. That's what I see in the future. Who knows, we'll look forward to seeing whether we can pull off a global one in the US.
There's another topic that didn't come up. I don't think came up that much at Shoptalk and as parts of the track, but I think is worth mentioning because we could or could not hear about it more. So I had this conversation. I recorded a podcast with Alex Graf, who is the co-CEO of Spryker and a very well-known opinion leader in FMCG and e-commerce, especially in Germany, where he has a couple of e-commerce podcasts, one in English and one in German. Anyway, one of the topics he talks about a lot is so China has been a bit of an island when it comes to e-commerce during all these years, much more advanced than Europe, but kind of doing their own thing. And now we're seeing how we had Shane come to Europe with pretty successful, but in the last year we've had Temu come to Europe with this very type of social Temu, STEMU. Are they in the US yet?
They're very much in the United States. Their target in the US and how they've managed to penetrate this market is positioning themselves as, listen, you don't need your stuff overnight. And therefore, if we can save you money and you get it in a week or so, isn't that appealing? And they've particularly targeted a more rural audience where the 1 or 2 day delivery for Amazon isn't prevalent to begin with. So it's really not much of a stretch for consumers to adopt Temu's delivery mechanism. And so they're like, wow, if I can save $5-10 on every order because I'm just going to get it in 5 or 6 days, that's okay. I was only getting it in 4 or 5 days anyhow with Amazon.
Exactly. So like it's the availability, price, and an assortment triangle is a line of assortment and price, right? So they've acquired 80 million million customers in 1 year in Europe. So that could potentially change the game. Now, I don't know how relevant will be to all categories. Will that really challenge brands? Because this is really a value proposition and not a brand proposition. But I think it's something worth keeping in mind. And then in China, you have TikTok, where you can buy products from, which has a tremendous business volume. I think their GMV, I don't want to misquote it, but it is like in the 300 billion or something like that. It's like crazy high.
Yeah, TikTok shops have become a huge commerce mechanism and channel, particularly in China, and that is moving over in North America and Europe very, very quickly. I know in my other avatar at Flywheel, we've been through our 4K Miles division, we've been doing TikTok shops and supporting them for over 2 years. And that is a very large multi-million-dollar business. And that is coming in very quick speed to some of the more developed nations. So yeah, it's really big. Hey, I had a question for both you guys. One of the things that Shoptalk and Grocery Shop are quite well known for is having introduced these meetups. These are double opt-in speed dating sessions, 15 minutes long, where you're paired up with someone that you want to meet and they've indicated they want to meet. I think you both participated in them. Would love to hear your thoughts on the experience, and did you get anything out of it, Daniel?
Look, I could spend like an entire week just having these meetups one after another, because they're all relevant in the way that we're all working in the consumer goods and retail industry. So you always have something interesting to share, and you always meet somebody interesting. But on top of that, like maybe 1 out of 2 times at least, you meet someone that you can do business with. So for me, great system. The only feedback I would give is that there's people that you're matched with in the meetups that you match first, but then you don't finally match. So there's some people that fall off in that. So my advice to people attending next year and to myself would be 2 screenshots of those, because you may want to meet with them later.
The thing I'll tell you about meetups, maybe I'm giving away a little too much. Shree will be mad at me for doing this, but here's the thing about meetups, right? The more you request, okay, the less likely you are to get the ones you want the most. And this is why. Let's say, Daniel, you've only requested to meet with 10 people, but I've requested to meet 100 people. Let's say the 10 that you requested also happen to be the 10 I've requested, right? The way the algorithm works is that its goal is to try to maximize the number of meetings each participant has. So if I get the 10 and you get none of them, you get no meetups. But if they give you the 10, I've got 90 other that the algorithm can pick from. So in all likelihood, it's kind of like this less is more. The less people you select for the meetup, the more likely it is that when it comes down to it, that the algorithm is going to give you that person, because you haven't given the algorithm any other choices, options to do that. So I always recommend people, and this is particularly relevant in the hosted meetings, which is the pay for play version of the meetups, where you're getting a much higher quality of brand and retailer participating in that event. Like if you don't want to meet with someone, don't put them on the list as someone you want to meet, because the algorithm's going to, particularly in the hosted meeting, Shoptalk and Grocery Shop don't get paid for meetups unless the meeting happens. So their goal is to try and maximize the number of meetings. But if you end up selecting a whole lot of people, and as I gave that example, 100, and the meetings that I get are kind of like the lower half, bottom quarter of my preferred options of who I wanted, I'm not going to get a very strong yield. It's better for me to be very, very selective about who I want to meet with, because it's much more likely that those are the people that I'm going to get, because the algorithm is going to sign them to me, because if they don't, then I don't get any meetups. Am I missing something here, Sri?
I'm not surprised that as a service provider, you have done your homework on the actual algorithm. So I'll wear the brand hat for 1 second, given my background, Peter, versus yours. From a brand perspective, though, the meetup is actually a very interesting way. Now, for the meetup to be successful, you have to do your homework in advance. If you don't do your homework and you don't have an intent to meet the exact person that you want to, and you just randomly pick stuff, it's going to be chaos. The algorithm is going to do exactly what you just described, Peter, which is you're going to be disappointed with who you meet, the conversations you have, because you're not going to get you're not going to get the choicest pick. So my suggestion is find the 2025 that you think you'll benefit most from. Pick the 2025 and make it a varied assortment of who you want to meet. If you only want to meet service providers, yeah, the algorithm will probably not deliver a perfect promise for you. And don't pick like 5, like you just said. Pick the 25. So you have an assortment, so you're not disappointed with a net score of a 0. But for me, Peter, the biggest value in the meetup, whether it was Europe, whether it's back in Vegas, still comes down to, did I do my homework? Do I know who I want to meet? Did I pick my 25? And then I get 10 that I walk away with, that I say, yeah, this was optimized to give me the 10 that I enjoyed the conversation with. So let's talk about Europe and the meetups for 1 second right now from last week at the time of this recording, right? I did 8 or 9 of them. I did come away with about 30%, 3 or 4, where there's follow-ups for me, and I found the conversation. I found new capabilities that actually don't exist in the US that I have follow-ups for next week. You're a part of some of those follow-ups, Peter. So for me, it was valuable to do the meetup, even though I had to go from table to table to table to table. It's a concept that I personally don't enjoy. I have follow-ups and some leads, as Daniel mentioned, and it's capabilities that don't exist in the US. So all in all, it's actually a win.
That's pretty good. Thank you for that summary, Sri. So I guess we have an opportunity. I'm sure that some of our friends at Shop Talk, Sophie and Ben Miller and what have you. By the way, thank you all for being such great hosts for Sri and Daniel. Feedback for them, things you'd like to see more of, less of, kind of like that stop, start, continue. Anything come to mind that you really think that you want them to take note of for future events?
For me, it's simple. For me, it's just based on what I've heard from people at the event. It's just bring more that conversation of unified commerce, but actually in a real way of bringing people from like the merchandising side of the retailer, from the trade marketing departments of companies, from the marketing departments of companies. So keep it commercial as it is now, but maybe supply chain can come in as well a bit more, but bring in more like the brick and mortar side, because it will just make it a more well-rounded event.
For me, Peter, the thing that was so good about Shoptalk Europe was my ability to navigate the entire show floor, the conversations, the hosted meetings, go to various stages and listen to keynotes and tracks, all within one kind of venue, within a 7-8 minute walk of each stage. That easy. Or a booth to meet a new service provider, or to do my conversations through the hosted meetups. What I struggle with at Vegas is the amount of time required between one meeting and another to be able to navigate the show floor, the pure density of how to get the conversations done and how to meet people in Vegas is still daunting to me. I don't know if there's an answer given that the volume of traffic in the US probably is in the order of magnitude of 4x what is at Shoptalk Europe, and maybe Shoptalk Europe will also grow at some point to be very difficult. But if there's a way to solve the Vegas problem of there's just too much stimulation and too much going on, so you really have to work hard to pick and choose, which means if you did that, you're missing out on something that you wish later on, oh my gosh, I wish I had done that. To me, that's the one standout in Europe. It was just easy. The 3 days just zoomed by. And I want to say again, I'll end by what I said right up at the front. The coolest place to be, the hottest place to be was the FMCG guys party along with the CPG guys. Thank you to our 3 sponsors for that event. Rooftop, views of the Sagrada Familia.
I also, let me put in a word as well for, on one hand, Pricefighter for their event on Monday evening. It was great to see Brett Banner, who's also a one-time CPG guy and one-time FMCG guy guest. So they had us at their event. They put our logo up there and they let me talk in public. So that's always good to let my voice be heard. So there was a great event in a very nice location in Barcelona. Also, a lot of people from brands turned up. And then on Tuesday evening, it was actually the Spriker team that had me at their rooftop event as well, talking about good and bad shopping experiences, which was a lot of fun. It was also a good networking opportunity. And as well, finally, thank you to the Shoptalk team for letting Efrain, Shri, and Christoph Sterkel do a live the FMCG Guys podcast at the show, which was amazing because normally we do it behind closed doors, so to speak. So to have the audience in front of us was pretty amazing.
What a great opportunity to be on stage yourselves at this event. Listen, guys, I would agree with you, Shri. I'll make one last comment. When you have to take, and Daniel knows this because he was sharing the suite with me at Shop Talk, when you have to take 10,000 steps just to get from your hotel room to the show floor, that's a pretty big commitment. And then to try and walk around the show, it is, I think, a bit unmanageable, and the times are just a little too tight. So feedback to the Shop Talk people, recognize some of that and make sure that you facilitate ways to build that into people's ability to move around. It's a lot of space, particularly at the Mandalay Bay. I know there are talks about moving the venue, but everybody wants to participate, and sometimes it's just really hard when you have to sprint from one area to the other to get it. But that's only because we all want to just take advantage of everything that's going on there. So Daniel, Shri, thanks for taking time out of your days to give us a recap of what happened in Barcelona. Next time the 3 of us convene, it's going to be on the Riviera in the south of France for the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity. We're only a couple weeks away as we record that. I'm looking forward to it, guys. Should be fun.
1 week away.
1 week, Shri. Are you ready? Have you started packing?
Can't wait, Peter. It's my first time at Cannes Lions, so I'm excited for it being my first. But the CPG guys have so much going on. We actually have so many podcasts to record. The schedule actually looks a little bit overwhelming to me, but it's exciting that we get to go to France in this role. I waited 29 years wearing brand leadership hats, some of the greatest brands in the world, and I couldn't get to go to Cannes Lion. I get to go as a CPG guy, so thank you for that partnership.
Who got you to Cannes Lions, Shri? Who got you to Cannes Lions?
The CPG guys. No debate in my head.
CPG guys.
Yes.
Shri, we gotta pack our Hawaiian shirt because Daniel, as he records this, is wearing his FMCG guys Hawaiian shirt. And I hear I think later today, you're getting a whole new shipment of short sleeve CPG guys Oxford shirts. That's going to be awesome.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right, everybody. Well, listen, on behalf of the FMCG guys and my fellow CPG guy host, Shri, want to thank you for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for an update from Cannes, where I'm sure we'll have lots more to say, but this brings to a close our recap of Shoptalk Europe 2024. Thanks, and look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of the FMCG Guys and the CPG Guys podcast. Goodbye. The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPGGUYS LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPGGUYS LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPGGUYS LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPGGUYS LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.